Pokemon Go is the digital scavenger hunt we all wanted growing up. And now kids and adults alike are experiencing that and getting some exercise as well. So what's the harm? I'm Scott Schober, and this is your 2-minute cybersecurity briefing. Like any massively successful online game, Pokemon Go involves millions of players and their data. This is no different than Twitter, Facebook, and many social apps and data mining companies like Google. So while it's not inherently unsecure, can Pokemon Go and best security practices really coexist? Pokemon Go was developed by Niantic, a mobile game developer that spun off of Google. Back in 2011, Google developed Ingress, an AR, augmented reality game that had players walking around real environments, searching for virtual clues and battles. Much of this data was used to formulate the maps and locations that now populate Pokemon Go. Together, Google, Niantic, and Nintendo are responsible for both Pokemon Go's tremendous success and security suspicions. From day one, Pokemon Go was fraught with release bugs that typically accompany new titles, especially ones that are so popular. Niantic promised to fix these bugs and has already released updates that address most of them. Niantic offered an alternative by way of using Google accounts to log in, but iOS users immediately noticed a discrepancy. iOS users were notified that in order to play Pokemon Go, they had to agree to grant full access to Niantic. This traditionally means that not only would Niantic and Google have full access to your location, photos, and email addresses, it also included things like actual contents of email and search history too. Niantic quickly issued a fix and stated it was an error and nobody's full data was ever received or used. But the red flags went up for security experts everywhere and have yet to lower back down. These security concerns, hype, and eventual backlash are all to be expected. After all, how often do 20 million people all sign up and begin playing the same data tracking game virtually overnight? Here are some possible tips to stay safe from some possible and some very real threats. Niantic's EULA, End User License Agreement, requires binding arbitration should any user fall victim to both real or cyber threats. This means that if Pokemon Go or Niantic is hacked and all of your user data is spilled out over the internet, Niantic reserves the right to hold secret arbitration hearings because you have already agreed to it. This bypasses regular courts of law and makes class action lawsuits very difficult for victims. If that scares you more than a Squirtle with a CP of 250, cancel your account now. But if you want to play and retain your rights, simply send a mail to termsofservice@nianticcollapse.com with arbitration opt-out notice as the subject. With so many new app permissions being granted for Pokemon Go, it might be a good time to look back at all your past app permissions. I can almost guarantee you will find at least one old app that you no longer use that still has access to your data. Why not deny access to any app you do not use or trust? Simply log into your Google account and click on Go to Privacy and Security, then to Account Permissions, and remove any that you do not want. Another safe way to play without worrying about data and permission issues is to simply create a dummy Google account. Go to gmail.com and click Create Account at the bottom. It's simple and free for anyone. Yes, it's one more password to remember, but at least you get to allocate the importance of this burner account by deciding what has access to it and what does not. There have been multiple reports of robberies and accidents involving Pokemon Go players. While these are not cybersecurity threats per se, I would be remiss not to include them because they are real issues with real victims. Not only are these players distracted by their devices, but they're being lured by the game and possibly by thieves to specific areas to capture rare Pokemon. Perhaps we have evolved enough in the age of the smartphone to walk and battle Pokemon safely. But what about the drivers? Texting is still a huge safety issue on our roads, and Pokemon Go doesn't really address it effectively. Niantic claims that any movement faster than 20 miles per hour will not register in the game. Walking great distances is required to hatch Pokemon eggs. But I suspect the game and its battles still function while driving. Sure enough, I was able to battle a Zubat over the course of a few blocks in stop-and-go traffic by putting a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on movement. Niantic may have successfully thwarted cheaters, but they're doing very little to curb distracted driving. And if this game is truly bigger than Twitter and Facebook, I suspect we will be hearing about more distracted driving incidents as well as cybersecurity threats due to Pokemon Go in the future. Stay safe.